Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program training for school year 2026. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Stephanie Stombach, and I am with the Child Nutrition Office and oversee the FFVP in our team. Recorded, and it will be posted on our webpage at a later time. All right, so here's our agenda. So first, we're going to begin with FFVP awards for this school year. Then we're going to move into a discussion on allocations and funding and how funding is awarded, the formula that's used for that. Then we're going to move into some general program guidelines because we have some new staff and new schools joining us this year. And I'll also share some new resources that we have available. Then we will go into reimbursable costs and claiming, and then wrap things up with resources. So you are attending this training likely because one or more of your schools was selected to participate in this program. So I know some of you have been around for 10 plus years and have been participating for many years in the program, and others are just starting out. So this is really an overview of the program. So for school year 2026, we awarded 190 schools. And we received a total of 2.8 million in funding. And this was more than we received in the past, which was a positive thing to have. Schools that had 40% of their students eligible for free and reduced meals or more were awarded FFVP. We always have to give priority to the highest free and reduced eligible schools. We do have an awards list on our FFVP webpage in case you'd like to take a look to see which schools were awarded for the upcoming year. And then the funding amounts for each school are listed in CMP Web. So I will go into those reports and how to access those in a few slides. So as far as school selection goes, this is the criteria that's used to determine who can participate and be awarded the program. So the first one is you must participate in the National School Lunch Program. You must be a combination of grades pre-K through 8, as long as pre-K is enrolled in the school. And as I mentioned earlier, priority is given to schools with the highest free and reduced percent. But we do look at other criteria in the awards process, and these are not automatic disqualifiers, but some other considerations that are used in the awards process. The first one is we do look at late claims. So 3 or more late claims over the course of the school year requires a corrective action plan. We also look at fund usage, and low fund usage would be if less than 25% of funds are used by mid-year or midpoint, or if less than 50% of funds are used by the end of the school year. And fund usage is monitored in our office, and it's something that that I look at throughout the year. And then one other thing that we consider is if we have any concerns with another child nutrition program, because FFVP is a program on top of what is already being operated for with National School Lunch and School Breakfast. So that is another consideration that we use. So it's important to understand the funding structure for FFVP because it does not align with the school year, and this can present some unique challenges. So it runs on a federal fiscal year, not the school year. So for school year 2026 funding, that begins on October 1st and runs through September 30th of the following school year. So what this means is you must save funds at the end of the school year for September of next year. So would need to budget accordingly to save some funds for September of next year. So you might be asking yourself some questions like, when does your funding begin for this current school year? So for returning schools, if your school participated last year and is returning this year, you're using your rollover funds from school year 2025, and that's used for September only. These are automatically rolled over in CMP Web. And then for school year 2026, that allocation begins October 1st. If you're a new school and did not participate last year, your funding begins October 1st because there are no September funds because the school wasn't operating FFVP last year. But you can use September to plan to get started for October 1st. So I get a lot of questions on how much funds does each of my schools have? How do you access that information? So that is all housed in CMP Web under the FFVP usage report. And I have posted this in the Thursday update for the last several weeks. So it might be helpful to take a screenshot of that and post it in your office or kitchen as a helpful reminder. So when you go to the FFVP usage report in CMP Web, you'll find it under the reports tab, accounting reports, and then you're going to select program year 2026 in your district because it lists all the districts in the state. And I'll show you how to go about reading that report in a few minutes. As far as each school's allocation goes, those are based on a per student rate multiplied by enrollment. And I am required to use a per student rate of $50 to $75 per student. This is a federal regulation. So for school year 2026, I use $64 per student. And then if you multiply that by enrollment from the most recent ED 534 report, that is what your enrollment is your allocation is for the entire school year. And I did increase this per student rate compared to last year, and this is due to the increased cost of produce. All right, so before I get into CMP Web reports, just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that there was a password change in CMP Web that went into effect yesterday. If you have already logged into CMP Web, you likely have already changed your password, but just wanted to remind everyone the directions are also on the CMP Web landing page. And if you have any issues with password resets, please reach out to Miles Ledlaw in our office and he can assist you. All right, so these are the CMP Web reports that you'll want to use frequently and be aware of. So for FFVP usage, so with this report, it lists the allocations or the funding amounts for each school. It gives an updated balance by school, and you can also track the fund usage each month. There's also an FFVP monthly claim report. So this is a snapshot of each month's FFVP expenses or what you've claimed each month. And it also breaks down the operating and administrative costs, which can be helpful in terms of what you've spent in both categories. All right, so I'm going to go over how to read the usage report because I do get a lot of questions. Um, so when you select the school year and your district, on the left-hand side, you'll see all of the schools that are currently participating um, listed on the left-hand side. The amount column lists allocations for each school. And then under the amount column, you'll see PY rollover, which is prior year rollover, and then October through September. So the prior year rollover, these are your rollover funds to use in August and September only. And then after September 30th, those funds are not available. And the October through September column, this is what you have available to spend starting October 1st. So these funds are available from October 1 through September of the next year. So that's why it's this column is titled October through September. And then the next column, the balance, so that will list the balances for each for your prior year rollover and then your new allocation. This is a live report and it's updated as claims are processed. So if you file your October claim and go back into the usage report, it will show your balance as of your October claim. And then the usage column, which is the last column on the right-hand side, this shows a percentage of funds used for each school. And it's also based on what you have claimed to date. So this is the section of the report I use to monitor fund usage throughout the year. The next report is the FFVP monthly claim report. So I consider this a monthly snapshot of FFVP expenses, or like to refer to it as such, because it breaks down the operational and administrative costs. It's a good place to spot check against your own figures. It's also a good place to check maybe towards the end of the year how much administrative costs you've used to date, because you can only use a certain percentage. So I would definitely refer to this report, be familiar with it. You can also export it as an Excel file and sort it however you would like to. It's available under CMP Web. So let's move into some general program guidelines. So these are the FFVP goals of the program. And I think it's helpful to keep these in mind when determining what produce items to offer students, because the program really is an opportunity to encourage students to try new foods and expose them to foods they might not have had the chance to try at home. So definitely helpful to keep these goals in mind. So now we're going to go through, from a very basic level, how the program works. So fresh fruits and vegetables are available during the school day to all enrolled students. It does need to be offered outside of breakfast and lunch to avoid double dipping, because you are getting reimbursed for the meals you serve and for FFVP. So it does have to be separate. And the school decides when, where, and how to implement the program. It's great because there's a lot of flexibility to develop a plan. And if you are a new school, you can refer to what was submitted on the SY 2026 FFVP application as kind of a starting point. And then This program is a reimbursement program where you're reporting your expenses on the site claim each month. So you're reporting your food, labor, and other expense and then getting reimbursed for that. So here are some um, details on what you can serve under the program. So as the name implies, so fresh product only, no fruit leather or craisins, dried fruit, frozen fruit. You can offer dips with vegetables, but not with fruit. So, for example, hummus and carrots, or a nut butter with carrots or celery. Um, and then as far as the kind of product you can offer. Really, it depends on how it's set up in your kitchen and keeping in mind labor. So you can do whole fruits and vegetables, prepackaged, which could help with labor and cutting down labor. And then pre-cut produce is also a good option for younger students. So really, the sky is the limit. You have lots of options on where to source from. So food sourcing from your distributor that you're purchasing for lunch and breakfast. A lot of distributors, or maybe even all, separate invoice for FFVP. So that's really convenient when it comes time to file your claim. You can source from local farms, but just make sure to not double dip with the state local foods fund. If you have a school garden or greenhouse, you can use that produce in the FFVP. And also, if you're maybe a smaller school, you can go to your grocery stores, and they also have some different exotic products there that you could use in your program. So as far as when and where to serve, so when would be outside of breakfast and lunch times. Um, as far as where and the location of the school, there are a lot of programs that serve the produce in carts in the hallway. If it's a bigger school and there's different wings, sometimes this is a good option. Um, I would say a good number of schools are still delivering to the classroom, and kids um, are getting the FFVP item in their classrooms. Locker break is another option. Also, after PE class, the kids might be hungry depending on the time of their class. Um, and this is just a tip for those that are offering a breakfast after the bell, um, to maybe consider serving in the afternoon versus the morning to kind of spread out when kids are eating breakfast and their FFVP item. Um, Serving it in the afternoon might increase participation in FFVP. As far as the number of serving days, so the minimum is 2 days per week, although more is encouraged because it does become a part of the student's day. And this can be adjusted at any point during the school year. If you started off at 3 days a week and you find it's going smoothly, you want to increase it to 5, that's absolutely fine. You don't need approval to do that. You can always increase the number of serving days. Some other reminders, so fruits, when they're offered, they cannot be offered with a fruit dip. That's a requirement for FFVP. If it's a vegetable, you can offer dips. They just have to be portion controlled. Cooked vegetables are allowed 1 day per week. And if you choose to offer this, nutrition education does have to be a part of that. And there are no portion size requirements. So it really is based on the age of the students. You can kind of plan what your portion size will be based on the age of the kids that are participating in the program. So with FFVP, you can use your funds to purchase any equipment, and having the right equipment can help with efficiencies in the program and also elevate your program, um, make make it more eye-catching if you have carts where you're distributing to the kids, or using this cart that's on the slide. So there is an equipment request form on our website, and I've listed the web link here. So all the equipment requests will be sent to me. So I've included my email here. And approval is needed for large equipment purchases. So think sectionizers, carts, um, slicers, those sorts of things. So you would submit your equipment request to me. No approval is needed for small wares and supplies such as knives, serving containers, and with all equipment purchases, you must follow proper procurement guidelines. So this is what the equipment request form looks like. It's pretty simple. It's just a one pager that asks for information. How many times per week are you serving? Do you plan on splitting the equipment cost with other child nutrition programs? If you plan on using it in the lunch program and FFVP. And this is a fillable PDF that you would submit to myself. So these are some past equipment requests that have been approved. So I get a lot of requests for carts. That's probably the number one. Of course, needing to distribute to multiple areas of the school. Slicers and sectionizers are probably number two. Again, just trying to find efficient ways to, pre-cut the produce and get it to kids, versus whole fruits and vegetables. Courers, reach-in coolers, and then fruit and veggie stands are also some other requests I've received in the past. And just a reminder, if you are going to use in the lunch or breakfast program, that the cost must be prorated amongst the programs. All right, so what about adults? So only teachers and staff who are directly responsible for serving to students can have the FFVP item. And this is because they're modeling the behavior and encouraging their students to try a new food, something they're not familiar with. So it isn't available to the general teacher population. And we do encourage teachers to include a nutrition education component because it just makes the program more effective, and kind of gives the why of the program. And I will go over some new materials that can assist with this that we created. So here are some ways to get teacher and staff buy-in on the program because we know this can be a hurdle for some schools. So this includes a reminder on why it's important that it's part of the student's day and helps keep them focused. You could find a teacher who's a champion of the program and can talk it up to other teachers. How it's going in their classroom and maybe some tips that they can share with other teachers. I've also seen staff emails that go out explaining the program, the importance of it. And then also, I think it helps to work within their schedules. I've seen some schools where certain grades will have the program in the afternoon and others will have it in the morning. And I feel like school nutrition does a great job with being flexible with the schedules, and I think also helps create that buy-in with teachers and staff. So Um, so I think everyone's doing a really great job with that. So here are our new FFVP promo materials that I'm excited to share. And they've been on the Thursday update the last few weeks as well. So we've created a toolkit to share with teachers, parents, students. This was created over the summer by a dietetic intern that we had in our office. Um, and so I've listed what these resources are. We have menu templates, fact sheets, and announcements, some other fun things like word searches. And then we do have some sample templates if you do want to send an email out to teachers or potentially parents in your schools, kind of explaining the program um, and other information that would be helpful. So please take advantage of these resources. And I do welcome any feedback that you have, good or bad, how they're working, how you're using them would be really helpful for us to know um, how to improve. So here are some examples of the resources that were created. They're colorful, fun, um, I think are really kid-friendly. Um, and they have our logos, which is neat. So we have a fun fact sheet, and I would say most, if not all, of the resources are editable, so you can customize, with the exception of the word search and I think the parent handout. But the menu templates, the fact sheets, we have a bunch of templates that you can use and customize to your needs. And then going along with nutrition education, just wanted to share some ideas for this. There are lots of partner organizations that can help with this, either directly or indirectly. Humane Cooperative Extension, Food Corps. There's also HEAL coordinators in different public health districts throughout the state. Um, promoting the program on the menu and website. There's also free resources from Team Nutrition, so you can go online and order those. There's posters and other materials that are free of charge. Because with FFVP, you can't use your funds to purchase any educational materials, so having these free resources is really great. As far as publicizing the program, so this is a requirement, and if you're up for an administrative review, it's a question that we ask. So I've listed some examples here. So it would be doing an email blast to parents and school staff. If you have social media, posting on Facebook or Instagram, school board meetings. So these are different ways you can get the word out. In terms of monitoring, so similar to what you have to do with lunch and breakfast, there is an FFVP on-site monitoring form. So this does have to be completed before February 1st of each year. So I'd mark your calendars. And it's a really helpful self-review to go through, and many of the questions are, what we look at during an administrative review, so you can help get your programs on the right foot. And then once it's completed, you'll just file internally. You don't have to send it to us, but we will look at it during a review. And one piece of advice I would give when reviewing your programs is to specifically look at how leftovers are handled, especially if produce is being delivered to the classroom. Ask the teacher or the staff member how leftovers are handled, because we do see this a lot where there's a lot of product being left in the classroom. So it's just making sure the communication is there between the kitchen and the classroom. Well, let's move into reimbursable costs and claiming. So how do you get your money? So for reimbursable costs, there are operational and administrative. So operational would be um, the cost of your fruits and vegetables, labor to prep and serve, any supplies, and then administrative costs are limited to 10% of the total grant award. So this would include labor to order product and prepare the claim. Any large equipment purchases would fall under administrative costs. And administrative costs are not a requirement. You can use all of the grant on operational costs on fruits and vegetables. But if you um, find that you would like to use administrative costs, it is allowable. So as far as claiming your FFVP expenses, so those are entered on the site claim each month. So you're going to enter both your operating and administrative if you're claiming those as well. Um, so you see those listed here for your administrative equipment. So that's number 18. That's where you would report any approved large equipment. And I will add that in CMP Web, we do have an edit check. If you go over the 10% admin costs, or if your allocation is exceeded, if you are trying to claim more than what you were awarded, there are edit checks and you'll receive an error message. And that's usually when Jody or I will get an email or call saying, oh no, we're getting an error message. So just so that everyone is aware of that. This was a warning I recently just heard from a school about that. Again, we have another edit check in CNP Web for as part of the sponsor claim. So this is just a warning. It's not an error message, so the claim will still go through. But for example, if in August you didn't claim any FFVP expenses, you would get this warning because it's just telling you that you have two schools that are operating the program and you haven't claimed anything. So it's just kind of like a friendly reminder. Your claim will still go through, just so that everyone knows if that does happen. So again, it's just so that you don't miss claiming a school. Another tab that you might find helpful is the FFVP or payments tab. There is a column, or I should say a heading for FFVP. So that's another place where you can tell how much you've been paid to date in FFVP. And just a side note with the payments tab is it is the combined total of all schools that have the program. So it doesn't give you that breakdown by school, but at the district level, how much you've been paid for in FFVP funds. All right, so now we're going to move into FFVP reallocations because this is a change that we've implemented since the spring. So the whole reason behind reallocating funds is it does maximize our fund usage as a state because it's less money that we're returning to USDA. And it's also um, something that will happen throughout the year where, you might have a district or you might have a school that's spending more funds and another school that isn't spending um, as frequently. So um, a request will come down to us because of that. So reallocation is really just another term for transferring funds from one school to another um, in different times throughout the year. I will transfer funds within schools. The first time is usually after I do a mid-year review of fund usage. That's when I will send out notifications if less than 40% of funds have been spent as of February. Um, and so it's a reminder to just make people aware and then to submit a plan to me of how funds will be used and if there is a percentage that maybe you're willing to give up. And so that process happens, and then I reallocate funds to a school in need. Another situation is I will get a school request. They're running low on funds. And so I might pull funds from one school in the district to the other or outside of the district. And then, of course, towards the end of the year, more requests come in because schools are using more of their funds and might be running low. So we now have a new process, and this is to comply with federal regs. So we need to ensure that each school has a minimum allocation of $50 per student and not more than $75 per student, because that is the range that we have to work with. Um, and so a calculation is done with the minimum student rate against enrollment. That's based on the most recent ED 534 report where enrollment is reported. So I do a calculation with the minimum amount and then the maximum, which is $75 per student. So I'll show you an example. Um, so, so say for example, school A is in need of more funds. So I pull their enrollment. So say it's 150 students, and then I multiply that by $75 per student. So that tells me that they can't have more than $11,250 in FFVP funds at any point. And then for school B, if I am pulling from that school, they have an enrollment of 100 students. I have to multiply by $50 per student. So that means they can't have less than 5,000 in FFVP funds. As you can tell, it's a little bit of a math calculation to go through. So if I do get any requests, there is a little bit of math involved in figuring out how much to pull from which school. So it can take some time to do that. So just be aware that this is a new process. And sometimes it can take a few days to figure out which school to pull from. So in terms of monitoring the program funds, here are some budgeting tips that I think are helpful to have. So developing a budget for each school and monitoring it throughout the year, making adjustments as needed. I think that's also the benefit of doing a mid-year review of funds to see where you're at. Communicate frequently with staff to avoid over or underspending. Conduct a mid-year review of spending and adjust accordingly. And track carefully to make sure you do not exceed your allocation. Because if that does happen, you will receive an error message in CMP Web. So we're going to end with some resources, and some of them I've already discussed. If you are new, or maybe even if you aren't new, the FFVP handbook is a really helpful resource. It goes through all aspects of the program, really helpful resource. So I would encourage um, bookmarking that or saving that on your computer. There's also a USDA fact sheet that's on your screen. That can also be helpful to share with um, administration or anyone else who just wants to learn more about the program. There's a budgeting tool from Kansas that is available on our website if you need or are looking for another tool to help manage your budget throughout the year. And then our Maine FFVP promo materials. So those are all available on our website listed here. So here are just some ideas to think outside of the box. So holding a kickoff event can be a lot of fun and draw more attention to the program, or possibly partnering on a field day, like pairing nutrition and physical activity together, involving the PTO to get teachers and parents on board. As far as what to offer, so reaching out to distributors if they have any special menu items like pink pineapple, dragon fruit, anything like that. FFVP does not have to follow Buy American requirements, so they're not part of that 10% cap of non-domestic product. Work with a local orchard to feature a different Maine apple each week, so that could be a neat thing to do in October because that's National Farm to School Month. And then pairing common and less common fruits and vegetables, just to, again, increase variety that students are trying. So for example, you might do star fruit, which is a less common item, and cucumbers, which is more common. So those are just some ideas to think outside of the box and get some ideas going. And here is my contact information. And please reach out if you have any questions, and I'm here to help and here to make your program as successful as it can be. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see if we received any questions.
We have not.
Hey, Paula has informed me we have not. We'll give it maybe another 10 seconds. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great school year. Take care.